He wasn't looking for trouble, just a quiet man, stopping for a meal on his way through town. But sometimes, silence draws the loudest enemies. The kind of men who laugh too hard, drink too much, and hate too easily. To them, he was just another face, another target they thought they could break. But they had no idea who they were dealing with. What started as a cruel game of intimidation would spiral into a lesson they would never forget. Because this man carried battles they couldn't even imagine. But what happened inside that roadside diner would shake everyone who witnessed it. The diner was small, the kind of place where every sound carried. Forks clinked, grease sizzled on the griddle. And then, silence. Not the kind of silence that meant peace, but the kind that meant eyes were watching. Darius felt it before he saw it, the weight of stares pressing down on his shoulders. A group of bikers in leather vests leaned back in their seats, their laughter fading into something darker, something colder. It started with a smirk, then a whisper just loud enough for him to hear, a word spit like venom, casual to them, but heavy enough to split the air in two. The kind of word meant to wound, to remind him he didn't belong. Some people would have flinched, maybe looked down, maybe left. But Darius didn't move. He took a sip of his coffee, steady and calm, as if the insult never existed. But they weren't done. Men like this never are. The biggest of them, a hulking figure with a beard thick as rope, stood up, dragging his chair back with a screech that cut through the room. Boots pounded against the tile as he swaggered closer, his presence like a storm cloud swallowing the light. He stopped at Darius's booth so close Darius could smell the cigarettes on his vest. "Wrong place, wrong man," the biker sneered. Not in words, but in the way he loomed, in the way his shadow stretched across the table like a threat. The waitress froze behind the counter, her knuckles white around the phone she was too scared to use. The cook peeked from the kitchen window, spatula limp in his hand. Everyone could see where this was going, but no one dared step in, because this wasn't just about one man. It was about power, about hate, about making an example. Another biker rose, then another. Soon the booth was surrounded, leather and steel closing in like a cage. They cracked knuckles, flexed tattoos inked across fists and forearms. The air grew hot, heavy, charged with cruelty. They wanted him to react, to snap, to give them an excuse. And when he didn't, when his calm only mirrored back their rage, it drove them mad. One slammed a fist on the table. Another laughed, a sharp, cruel sound meant to humiliate. Darius didn't move. He didn't blink. His hand traced the rim of the coffee cup like time itself had slowed. But the storm was coming. The bearded one leaned in, voice low, dripping with menace. "You don't belong here." He spat the words like poison. And with them, he reached, fast, reckless, grabbing for Darius's collar. The room held its breath. Every eye locked on that single moment. And that's when the shift began. It was small, almost invisible. The way Darius's hand lifted, steady, deliberate, meeting the biker's wrist mid-air. His grip was iron, unyielding, calm, not frantic, not desperate, just controlled. The biker froze, his smirk faltering, his bravado cracking. For the first time, the room saw it. Something behind Darius's stillness, something carved from battles unseen, from training most couldn't imagine. He wasn't just calm, he was prepared in ways they would never understand. The biker yanked his arm back, stumbling a step, humiliated. But he couldn't stop now, not with eyes watching. He barked at his men, rage drowning out reason. "Get up!" Chairs scraped, boots thudded. One by one, the others surrounded the booth fully now, 6 against 1. The waitress whispered, "Oh, God!" But no one could hear her over the pounding of blood in their ears. The diner had become a stage, and everyone knew what was about to happen. But what none of them knew, not yet, was that this wasn't just another fight. This wasn't a bar brawl or a roadside scuffle. This was about to become something else entirely. Something that would shatter the arrogance of those men and leave the entire room in stunned silence. Because Darius wasn't just a man passing through. He was something far more dangerous. And when the first punch flew, they were about to find out exactly who they had cornered. But what happened next would flip the room upside down and prove that silence can be the loudest power of all. The diner exploded into chaos. The first biker lunged, swinging wild and heavy, but Darius moved like water, slipping past, redirecting the force, sending the man crashing face first into a booth. The sound echoed through the room, a sickening thud that silenced every whisper. But there was no time to breathe. Another came from the side, fists pumping, rage burning in his eyes. Darius ducked, countered, and drove an elbow into his ribs so hard the man folded, collapsing in a heap of leather and broken pride. The others roared, charging all at once. 6 against 1, the odds were stacked, but odds had never mattered to Darius. What mattered was control, precision, survival. Years of training surged to the surface, the kind of training they could never comprehend. In seconds, he wasn't just a man in a booth anymore. He was a weapon they'd awoken with their own hate. One swung a chair overhead, another pulled a chain from his vest. Desperate, violent. But Darius dismantled them one by one, disarming, disabling, never wasting a movement. He wasn't showing off. He wasn't fighting for glory. He was surviving the only way he knew how. By the time it was over, the floor was littered with bodies, groaning, staggering, clutching bruised ribs and twisted wrists. The smell of sweat and fear hung heavy in the air. The bravest of them, the leader, the one who had started it all, pushed himself up from the floor, his pride shattered, but his anger boiling hotter than ever. He glared at Darius, blood on his lip, and spat, "What the hell are you?" And for the first time, the truth slipped through the cracks. Darius didn't gloat, didn't raise his voice. He simply met the man's eyes with a stillness so deep it cut sharper than any blade. "I told you to back off." The leader froze, because in that voice, in that tone, he heard something undeniable. Years of war, battles unseen, ghosts carried in silence. The kind of strength you don't fake. The kind of strength born from places darker than they could ever imagine. The room felt it too. Every witness, the waitress clutching the counter, the cook with his spatula still in hand, the quiet man in the corner booth. They all knew now. This wasn't luck. This wasn't chance. This was a man who had walked through hell before and come out unbroken. And in that moment, the bikers realized the truth that would haunt them forever. They hadn't picked a victim. They had picked a Navy SEAL. The bell above the door rattled as one of them fled into the parking lot, boots pounding the gravel. The rest stayed slumped where they were, staring at him not with hate anymore, but with something else. Fear. Darius straightened his cap, calm as ever, as if nothing had happened. But for everyone watching, nothing would ever be the same again. Because what happened next would prove that true strength isn't about the fight. It's about the lesson it leaves behind. The diner grew quiet, but silence doesn't always mean peace. Darius stood among the wreckage, chairs overturned, plates shattered, the air still thick with adrenaline. The bikers who had come in certain of their power now sat broken and afraid, their hatred exposed for what it really was: weakness. And yet, as Darius walked out the door, the victory felt hollow. Because the truth was, he should have never had to fight in the first place. His strength had carried him through, but what about those who never got the chance? What about the countless names we only know because their stories ended in tragedy? not survival. That night, Darius replayed it in his mind. Not the punches, not the takedowns, but the moment before it all began. The smirks, the slurs, the certainty that his existence made him less in their eyes. That was the real wound. Because no matter how strong he was, he couldn't fight his way out of a world where racism was woven into the fabric of everyday life. This wasn't just a brawl in a diner. It was a reflection of something much bigger, a system where people are judged not by their actions, not by their hearts, but by the color of their skin. And while Darius had walked away this time, millions of others faced the same prejudice without witnesses, without cameras, without any chance to defend themselves. We like to believe racism is fading, that it's buried in the past. But the truth? It lives in whispers and glares, in assumptions and fears, in the daily battles no one else sees. And unless we confront it, head on, it will keep surfacing again and again. It's about remembering that real courage is not in breaking someone down, but in standing tall when the world tries to push you to your knees. So here's the question. How many more stories like this have to be told before change finally begins? How many more lives have to be scarred or lost before justice becomes more than a word? Because silence protects the oppressor, not the oppressed. And if this story stirred something in you, anger, sadness, even hope, then maybe that's where change starts. With you, with us, with refusing to look away.